The casket descended into frozen earth. Rose Alice Winters lay inside, 72 years reduced to silence, wrapped in white cotton. The Montana wind screamed across Pine Ridge Cemetery, cutting through black coats and bowed heads. 40 mourners huddled beneath a tent that snapped and trembled. The temperature had dropped to 15 below zero. Ice crystals hung in the air like suspended grief. Pastor James's voice cracked over the Lord's Prayer. Marcus Cole stood rigid beside the grave, his face a careful mask of sorrow. Behind him, Sheriff Tom Whitaker watched with narrowed eyes. Then, a sound that didn't belong. A howl. Distant. Raw. Desperate. Heads turned. The howl came again, closer now, tearing through the wind like a warning. From the tree line, a black shape exploded into view, massive, wild, unstoppable, shadow. The wolf dog crashed through the cemetery gates at full speed, snow erupting around him. People screamed, scattered. He didn't attack. He ran straight for the casket and jumped on top of it, clawing frantically at the wood, howling as if his heart would break. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. 3 days before the funeral, Rose Alice Winters sat in a sterile hospital corridor, listening to a little girl cry. The children's oncology ward at St. Mary's smelled of antiseptic and fear. Rose had worked as a nurse for 45 years before retiring. She knew that smell, knew what it meant when doctors spoke in hushed tones outside patient rooms, knew the weight of bad news before it was spoken. She wasn't supposed to be here. Marcus had asked her to stay home to rest, but Rose didn't rest well anymore. Not since the diagnosis 6 months ago. Early-stage Alzheimer's, Dr. Harrison had said. Progressive, irreversible. 2 years, maybe 3, before she wouldn't remember her own name. The crying stopped. A door opened. Marcus emerged, his face gray with exhaustion. He was 38, but looked older now. The past 3 months had carved lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "How is she?" Rose asked. Marcus sank into the chair beside her. "Lily's cancer is accelerating. Doctor revised the timeline, 3 months instead of 6. They need to do the transplant within 60 days or the organ damage will be irreversible." Rose's chest tightened. She'd known Lily since Marcus started dating Evelyn 2 years ago. The child had her mother's dark eyes and a laugh that could light up a room. 8 years old, just 8. "Have they found a donor match?" "No. Still searching the registry." Marcus's voice was hollow. "The experimental trial might buy us time, but it cost $200,000 up front. Insurance denied it. We've already spent everything we had on treatments they did cover." Rose watched him stare at his hands. Strong hands, gentle hands. The same hands that had changed her light bulbs, fixed her porch steps, read to her every evening for the past 15 years. Since his mother, Rose's best friend Linda, had died of cancer, leaving Marcus orphaned at 23. Rose had taken him in without hesitation. He'd become the son she'd never been able to have. "Your land," Marcus said quietly, not looking at her. "It's worth $4.5 million. If something happened to you, you want me to die faster?" Marcus's head snapped up. "No. God, no. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "I do," Rose said. The corridor fell silent except for the distant beeping of monitors. "What?" "I want to die," Rose repeated, her voice steady. "I have Alzheimer's, Marcus. Do you understand what that means? In a year I won't know who you are. I won't know who I am. I'll become a burden. You'll spend years, decades maybe, keeping my body alive while my mind rots away, spending money on me that could save Lily." Marcus stood abruptly. "I can't have this conversation." "Yes, you can." Rose caught his wrist. "Because I'm going to have it whether you want to or not." The little girl began crying again. Through the closed door, they could hear Evelyn's voice, soft and breaking, trying to comfort her daughter. That evening, Rose sat in her cabin at the edge of the forest, watching Marcus build a fire. Shadow lay at her feet, his massive head resting on her worn slippers. The wolf dog was 15 years old now, ancient for his breed. His black fur had gone silver around the muzzle, and arthritis made him move carefully, but his amber eyes remained sharp. "You don't have to do this," Marcus said, stacking logs in the fireplace. "There are other ways." "Name one." Rose poured tea from a kettle, her hands steady despite the tremor that had started months ago. "You've exhausted your savings. The banks won't give you a loan without collateral. You can't sell my land while I'm alive. It's in a trust. And even if you could, by the time the legal process finishes, Lily will be gone." Marcus's shoulders sagged. "I could get a second job, work nights, and make what? Another $30,000 a year? You need $800,000 for Lily's treatment. Do the math, Marcus. You'd be 70 years old before you saved enough." The fire caught, casting dancing shadows across the cabin walls. Rose had lived here for 47 years. She and David had bought the land in 1978, built this cabin with their own hands, 500 acres of Montana wilderness, worth almost nothing back then, worth millions now. "I've been reading," Rose continued, pulling a folder from beneath a cushion, "about dignified exits. Oregon has death with dignity laws. Montana doesn't. But there are methods, peaceful ones." Marcus turned from the fire, his face stricken. "Where did you even—" "I was a nurse for 45 years. I know about medications, about dosages, about what happens when the heart slows down gradually." She opened the folder, revealing printed articles, handwritten notes. "Digitoxin. It's derived from foxglove plants. In controlled amounts, it's a heart medication. In larger doses, combined with cold exposure, it induces a state that looks exactly like cardiac arrest." "Jesus Christ, Rose. It's painless, like falling asleep. The body temperature drops, the heart rate slows to almost nothing. Within a few hours, it's over." Shadow lifted his head suddenly, a low whine escaping his throat. His ears flattened against his skull. Rose reached down to stroke his neck. "It's okay, boy. We're just talking." But Shadow stood, moving between Rose and Marcus. The wolf dog had never growled at Marcus before, not once in 15 years. Now a rumble built in his chest, barely audible but unmistakable. "Shadow, down," Rose commanded gently. The wolf dog didn't move, his eyes fixed on Marcus, hackles slightly raised. Marcus stepped back, hands up. "He knows. Somehow he knows what we're talking about. He's just anxious. He can sense when I'm upset." Rose patted the couch beside her. "Come sit." "Please." Marcus moved slowly around Shadow, who tracked him with those unnervingly intelligent eyes. He sat, keeping distance between them. "I've already updated my will," Rose said. "Everything goes to you. The land, the cabin, my savings. It's all arranged with my lawyer. When I'm gone, you sell the property. Pay for Lily's treatment. Keep whatever's left to take care of Evelyn and yourself." "I can't ask you to do this." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Rose took his hand. Her skin felt thin as paper, blue veins visible beneath. "Marcus, listen to me. Linda, your mother, was my best friend since we were 6 years old. When she was dying, when the cancer had spread to her bones and she couldn't even lift her head, she made me promise something. She said, 'Take care of my boy. Love him like your own.' And I have. You are my son in every way that matters." Tears ran down Marcus's face. "Then how can you ask me to kill you?" "I'm not asking you to kill me. I'm asking you to help me die on my own terms." before Alzheimer's takes everything I am, before I become a stranger wearing Rose Winter's face." She squeezed his hand. "I want to die while I still know who I love, while I can still make this choice, while my death can mean something." Shadow paced to the door, scratching at it urgently. Rose stood, joints protesting, and let him out. The wolf dog vanished into the darkness beyond the porch light, his howl echoing through the pines. "He's upset," Marcus said quietly. "He'll come back. He always does." Marcus stared into the fire for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "If we do this, if it has to be peaceful, you can't suffer. I won't let you suffer." Rose nodded. "I know a doctor who might help, for a price." "Who?" "Dr. Sarah Chen, our family doctor, and she has reasons of her own to need money." 48 hours before the funeral, Marcus arrived at Rose's cabin before dawn. The sky was still dark, stars fading into gray. His truck's headlights cut through the morning mist as he parked beside Rose's old Ford. He sat for a moment, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. In the passenger seat lay a small paper bag from the pharmacy. Inside, a prescription bottle with Dr. Sarah Chen's signature, digitoxin. 50 milligrams. Enough. Dr. Chen had signed the prescription 2 days ago in her office, her hands shaking as she wrote. Marcus had placed an envelope on her desk. $360,000 in cashier's checks. 2 years of care for her husband John, who lay dying of ALS in their home, unable to move, unable to speak, trapped in a body that had become his prison. "Rose is dying anyway," Marcus had said. "Alzheimer's. She wants this. I'm not asking you to do anything except sign a death certificate when the time comes. Natural causes, heart failure, that's all." Dr. Chen had stared at the envelope for a long time. "If anyone finds out, no one will find out. Rose wants it this way. Peaceful, dignified. You'd be helping her. I'd be helping you commit murder. You'd be helping me save a child's life." Dr. Chen had signed the prescription without another word. Now Marcus sat in his truck, watching the cabin windows. A light came on in the kitchen. Rose was awake. He killed the engine, grabbed the bag, and walked to the door. Shadow met him on the porch. The wolf dog stood blocking the entrance, lips pulled back just enough to show teeth. Not a full snarl, a warning. "Move," Marcus said quietly. Shadow didn't move. "Shadow, move." The wolf dog held his ground. His amber eyes caught the first rays of sunrise, burning like small fires. Marcus had lived in this cabin for 15 years. Shadow had never once refused him entry. The door opened. Rose stood in her robe, white hair loose around her shoulders. "Shadow, that's enough. Let him in." Shadow turned his head to look at her, then back at Marcus. The message was clear. "I'm watching you." The wolf dog finally stepped aside. Marcus entered, and Rose closed the door behind them, leaving Shadow outside where he immediately began pacing, whining. "He knows," Rose said. "Animals sense death. He's been like this for days." Marcus set the bag on the kitchen counter. "We don't have to do this. Even now we can stop. We're not stopping." Rose filled the kettle with water, set it on the stove. "I've made my choice. I've made my peace." "Have you?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Because I haven't. I won't. Not ever." Rose turned to face him. In the gray morning light, she looked every one of her 72 years. Thin, fragile, but her eyes were clear, determined. "Marcus, when I was 17, I got pregnant. My parents forced me to give the baby up for adoption. A little girl. I held her for 10 minutes. Then they took her away. I never knew her name, never knew where she went. For 55 years I've wondered about her, if she was happy, if she ever thought about me, if she forgave me." Marcus had never heard this story. He stood frozen, listening. "I wanted more children," Rose continued. "Tried for years with David. But something was damaged inside me, couldn't conceive. So that baby, the one I gave away, she was my only chance. And I lost her." She wiped her eyes. "Then Linda died and left you to me. And I finally got to be someone's mother. Do you understand? You gave me that gift. 15 years of being needed, of mattering. You still matter, not for much longer. Alzheimer's will take that away. But this," she gestured to the bag on the counter, "this lets me choose how my story ends, and it lets my death save Lily. That's meaning, Marcus. That's purpose. Don't take that away from me." The kettle began to whistle. Rose turned off the stove, prepared 2 cups of chamomile tea. She opened the prescription bottle, measured out the pills, ground them into powder with the back of a spoon, mixed the powder into 1 cup. Outside, Shadow's whining grew more frantic. His claws scratched at the door. "He's going to break through," Marcus said. "Then we need to hurry." Rose picked up the cup with the digitoxin, held it between both hands, feeling its warmth. "Tell me about Lily. What does she want to be when she grows up?" Marcus's throat tightened. "A veterinarian. She loves animals. Like me." Rose smiled. "I would have liked to know her better. She loves the stories I tell about you, about Shadow, about how you saved that baby deer last spring. Tell her more stories. Tell her I wasn't perfect. Tell her I made mistakes. But tell her I loved you. Tell her that." Rose raised the cup to her lips. Shadow slammed against the door, once, twice. The wood cracked. Rose drank. The tea was bitter. She forced herself to swallow it all, grimacing at the taste. Set the empty cup down. "How long?" she asked. 2 to 3 hours. You'll get sleepy. Then your heart will slow. It'll be peaceful." Rose nodded, sat down in her rocking chair by the fireplace. "Stay with me." "Every second," Marcus promised, his voice breaking. Outside, Shadow howled. 3 hours later, Rose lay on her couch, a blanket tucked around her shoulders. Marcus sat beside her, holding her cold hand. The digitoxin had worked exactly as she'd said it would. Her breathing had slowed to almost nothing. Her pulse was barely detectable, a faint flutter against his fingertips every 30 seconds or so. She looked dead. Marcus checked his watch. 3:47 p.m. He needed to call Dr. Chen now before the window closed, before it became too late to make this look natural. Outside, Shadow had finally stopped howling. The wolf dog sat on the porch, silent now, his head resting on his paws. Defeated. Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Dialed Dr. Chen's number. "It's done," he said when she answered. "She's gone. Can you come sign the certificate?" A long pause. Then, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus hung up, looked down at Rose. Her face was peaceful, pale as snow. He leaned close, listening for breath. Nothing. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. There, barely. 8 beats per minute, maybe less. Her skin felt like ice. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Mom." The word broke him. He put his head in his hands and sobbed. Great, shuddering sobs that came from somewhere deep inside, from a place where guilt and love and desperation tangled together into something unbearable. A knock at the door made him jump. Dr. Chen stood on the porch, black medical bag in hand. She looked 10 years older than she had 2 days ago. Behind her, Sheriff Tom Whitaker's patrol car pulled into the driveway. Marcus's blood went cold. What's he doing here? Neighbor called about the wolf, Dr. Chen said quietly. Said it was howling for hours. Tom came to check. Sheriff Tom climbed out of his car, adjusting his hat. He was 45, built like a linebacker with sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. He'd known Rose since childhood. She'd helped raise him after his parents died. Marcus, Tom said, nodding. Then he saw Shadow lying motionless on the porch. What's wrong with the dog? Nothing. He's upset. Rose passed away this afternoon. Tom stopped walking. What? Heart failure. Sudden. Dr. Chen's here to sign the certificate. Tom looked at Dr. Chen, then back at Marcus. Rose was fine last week. I saw her at the grocery store. She seemed healthy. It was her heart, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. She had a condition. It was only a matter of time. I didn't know she had a heart condition. It was recent. Private. She didn't want people to worry. Tom walked past them into the cabin. Marcus and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. She looked terrified. Inside, Tom stood over Rose's body. He touched her forehead, her cheek, felt for a pulse at her wrist, then her neck. His fingers stayed there for a long moment. She's cold, he said. She's been gone about 3 hours, Marcus replied. Her lips are blue. That's hypothermia, not cardiac arrest. The cabin's cold. The fire went out. It's 65 degrees in here. Tom's eyes narrowed. And you didn't think to cover her with more than one blanket? Dr. Chen stepped forward, opening her medical bag. Sheriff, I understand you're concerned, but I need to conduct my examination. This is a medical matter. And I'm investigating a potential crime scene. Crime scene? Marcus's voice rose. Rose was 72 years old. She died of natural causes. Then you won't mind if Dr. Chen does a thorough examination. Tom crossed his arms. With me present. Dr. Chen knelt beside Rose, placing her stethoscope against Rose's chest. She listened. Her face went white. She listened again, moving the stethoscope to different positions. Her hand trembled. Well? Tom asked. Dr. Chen's voice was barely audible. There's a heartbeat. The room went silent. What? Marcus whispered. Very faint, maybe 10 beats per minute, but it's there. She's alive. Tom grabbed his radio. Dispatch, I need an ambulance at 1847 Pine Ridge Road immediately. Woman, 72 years old, severe bradycardia, possible hypothermia, ETA. 18 minutes, Sheriff. Make it faster. Tom turned to Marcus. What did you give her? Nothing. I didn't. Don't lie to me, son. I've known you 15 years. I know when you're lying. Tom stepped closer. What did you give her? Marcus's legs gave out. He sank into a chair. Digitoxin. Dr. Chen gasped. Tom's jaw clenched. How much? 50 milligrams. Jesus Christ. Tom looked at Dr. Chen. You prescribed it? Dr. Chen couldn't speak. She nodded. Why? Silence. Answer me. My husband, Dr. Chen whispered. He has ALS. End stage. The care costs $15,000 a month. Insurance maxed out. We're bankrupt. Marcus offered. Her voice broke. He offered to pay. $360,000. I just had to sign a death certificate. That's all. Just one signature. Tom stared at her with something like disgust. You sold your oath for money. I sold it for John's life, Dr. Chen shouted. Do you know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer? To know you can ease that suffering but you can't afford it? To have to choose between your husband and your conscience? I know what it's like to watch people I love die, Tom said coldly. I watched Rose nurse my mother through cancer when I was 10 years old. She sat up with her for 72 hours straight at the end. wouldn't leave her side. When my mother died, Rose held me while I cried. She was 16 years old. His voice cracked. And you were going to let her be buried alive for money. Outside, Shadow suddenly stood, his ears pricked forward. He limped down the porch steps, moving toward the road despite his arthritis. "Where's he going?" Tom asked. Marcus looked out the window. "I don't know. He never leaves the property." Shadow broke into a painful, limping run, headed toward the main road, toward town, toward the cemetery where Rose's funeral was scheduled for the day after tomorrow. "Something's wrong with him," Dr. Chen said. Tom watched the wolf dog disappear into the trees. "No, something's wrong with us." The ambulance arrived 14 minutes later, sirens wailing up the mountain road. 2 paramedics rushed in, Jake Martinez, 40, and his partner Lisa Chen, 35. They took one look at Rose and got to work. "Core temperature 89 degrees, Jake said, wrapping Rose in thermal blankets. "Pulse 25, blood pressure 60/40. She's in severe hypothermia and cardiac suppression." "How is she even alive?" Lisa asked, starting an IV. "I don't know. At this temperature, at her age, she should be dead." They loaded Rose onto a stretcher. As they lifted her, Rose's eyes fluttered. Opened just a sliver. Her lips moved, forming a word no one could hear. Jake leaned close. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Rose's lips moved again. This time, Jake heard it. "Shadow," she whispered. "Find Shadow." "The wolf?" Jake looked at Tom. "She's asking for the wolf." "He ran off," Tom said. "Headed toward town." "She's not going to make it without warming," Lisa said. "We need to move now." They carried Rose out to the ambulance. Marcus tried to follow, but Tom grabbed his arm. "You're not going anywhere. She's my mother. She's your victim." Tom snapped handcuffs on Marcus's wrists. "Marcus Cole, you're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." "Tom, please. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Tom's voice was hard, professional. "No mercy. You have the right to an attorney. Lily's dying. She needs that money." Tom finished reading the Miranda rights. Then he leaned close, his voice low and dangerous. "My mother died when I was 10. Rose took me in, fed me, kept me safe. She was the only mother I had left. And you tried to bury her alive." He tightened the cuffs. "I don't care about your reasons. I care about justice." He turned to Dr. Chen. "You're under arrest, too. Conspiracy to commit murder." Dr. Chen didn't resist. She held out her hands for the cuffs, tears streaming down her face. "What about John? Who's going to take care of John? You should have thought of that before you became an accomplice to murder." The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing. Tom loaded Marcus and Dr. Chen into his patrol car. As they drove down the mountain, they passed the cemetery. Fresh earth had been turned for Rose's grave. A simple pine casket sat waiting in the funeral home. Marcus stared at it through the window. In 48 hours, that casket would be lowered into frozen ground. Empty now. Waiting. He closed his eyes and prayed that Rose would wake up. The ambulance screamed through town, sirens splitting the frozen air. Inside, Rose lay wrapped in thermal blankets, her body temperature slowly climbing. 89 degrees, 90, 92. Still dangerously low, but rising. Jake checked her pulse every 30 seconds. Heart rate's increasing. 30 beats per minute now. Blood pressure stabilizing at 70/45. Lisa adjusted the IV drip, pushing warm saline into Rose's veins. "She's fighting. At 72, most people wouldn't survive this kind of hypothermia. Most people aren't Rose Winters, Jake said. He'd grown up in this town. Rose had delivered him in 1985 when his mother went into labor early, before they could reach the hospital. Delivered him in the back seat of a pickup truck on a mountain road in a snowstorm worse than this one. Saved both their lives. Rose's eyes opened, unfocused, glassy, but open. "Mrs. Winters, can you hear me?" Her lips moved. Jake leaned closer. "Shadow," she whispered. Where is Shadow?" "The wolf ran off, ma'am. Sheriff's looking for him." "No." Rose's hand gripped Jake's wrist with surprising strength. "He knows. Find him. Cemetery." "Why would he go to the cemetery?" Rose's eyes closed again. Her grip loosened. Jake felt for her pulse. Still there. Stronger now. 40 beats per minute. They arrived at St. Mary's Hospital 15 minutes later. The ER team was waiting. Dr. Patel, the chief of emergency medicine, took charge immediately. "Get her to Trauma 1. I want heated blankets, warm IV fluids, continuous cardiac monitoring. Draw blood, full panel, toxicology screen, and someone call the police. This looks like poisoning." "Sheriff's already involved," Jake said. "Made 2 arrests at the scene." They wheeled Rose into the trauma bay. Nurses swarmed around her, cutting away her clothes, attaching monitors. The machines began their rhythmic beeping. Heart rate, 45. Blood pressure, 75/50. Temperature, 94.3. Dr. Patel examined Rose quickly, efficiently, checked her pupils, reactive but sluggish. Listened to her heart, slow but steady, felt her abdomen, no obvious trauma. Then he saw the color of her lips, still faintly blue despite the warming. "This isn't just hypothermia," he said. "Her cardiac output is suppressed. Run that tox screen immediately. I want results in 30 minutes, not 2 hours." A nurse rushed the blood samples to the lab. Rose's eyes opened again. This time they focused on Dr. Patel. "My fault," she whispered. "Not Marcus. My fault. Ma'am, don't try to talk. You need to rest. My idea. I asked him, begged him." Each word came with effort. "Digitoxin. I took it. Wanted to die." Dr. Patel's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. "Why would you want to die, Mrs. Winters?" "Alzheimer's. Dying anyway. Wanted to save Lily, little girl. Cancer." "Needs money? My money?" Rose's breathing grew labored. "Please, don't punish Marcus. He was helping me." "That's not how the law works, ma'am." "Then law is wrong." Rose closed her eyes. "Shadow knew. Tried to stop me. Good boy." "Where is he?" No one had an answer. Across town, Shadow ran. His hips screamed with arthritis. His paws bled from broken ice and frozen asphalt. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The scent pulled him forward. Rose's scent, faint but unmistakable, leading toward the cemetery on the hill. He'd lived 15 years on instinct and training. David Morrison had taught him to protect, to detect danger, to sound the alarm when death approached. When David died, Shadow had failed, arrived too late, found his handler's body already cold. He wouldn't fail Rose. People scattered as he ran through town. "That's a wolf!" someone screamed. "Call animal control!" Shadow ignored them, focused only on the scent, on the cemetery gates ahead. At Pine Ridge Cemetery, workers prepared for tomorrow's funeral. The grave was dug, 6 feet deep, walls reinforced against the frozen earth. The pine casket sat in the funeral home's garage, simple and plain, just as Rose had requested. Frank Miller, the cemetery groundskeeper, was closing the gates for the night when Shadow appeared. The wolf dog charged straight at him. Frank stumbled backward. "Jesus!" Shadow didn't attack. He ran past Frank, heading for the fresh grave, stopped at its edge, staring down into the dark hole. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound so mournful it made Frank's skin crawl. "That's Rose Winter's grave," Frank said to no one. "That's her wolf. How does he know?" Shadow howled again. Then he began digging at the edge of the grave, paws scraping frozen earth as if trying to fill it in, as if trying to erase it. Frank pulled out his phone, called Sheriff Tom. "Tom, you need to get down here. Rose's wolf is at the cemetery acting crazy. He's at her grave site." Tom was at the police station, processing Marcus and Dr. Chen. "Her grave? Frank, Rose isn't dead." "What?" "She's at St. Mary's. Critical but alive. The funeral's canceled." "Then somebody better tell the wolf because he's tearing up the cemetery." Tom hung up, looked at Marcus through the bars of the holding cell. "Your wolf's at the cemetery, acting like Rose is already dead." Marcus stood. "Because I told him she was. This morning, when I locked him in the shed, I said, 'Rose is gone. You have to let her go. Animals understand more than we think.' Then he doesn't know she survived." "No, and he won't stop looking for her until he finds her." Marcus gripped the bars. "Tom, please, let me go get him. He trusts me. I can bring him to the hospital. Rose is asking for him. You tried to kill her. And Shadow stopped me. He tried to warn me, tried to protect her. He deserves to see that she's alive." Tom stared at Marcus for a long moment. Then he unlocked the cell. "You run, I will hunt you down." "I won't run." They drove to the cemetery in Tom's patrol car, found Shadow still there, lying at the edge of the grave now, exhausted. His white muzzle was caked with frozen mud. His paws left bloody prints in the snow. Marcus approached slowly. "Shadow, boy, it's okay." Shadow's head lifted, his amber eyes fixed on Marcus, not with trust but with accusation. "She's alive," Marcus said. "Rose is alive. You saved her. Do you understand? You saved her." Shadow didn't move. "She's at the hospital. She's asking for you. She needs you." At the word hospital, Shadow stood. His tail moved slightly. Not a wag, but recognition. "Come on, boy. Let's go see her." Shadow limped toward the patrol car. Tom opened the back door. The wolf dog climbed in, collapsed on the seat. Marcus sat beside him. As they drove to St. Mary's, Marcus put his hand on Shadow's head. The wolf dog didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "You were right. You tried to tell me. I should have listened." Shadow's tail thumped once against the seat. At the hospital, they made an exception to the no animals policy. A nurse led them to Rose's room in the ICU. She was awake now, propped up on pillows, her color better. Temperature, 96.8. Heart rate, 55. Still critical, but stable. When Shadow entered the room, Rose's face transformed. "Shadow. Oh, my boy." Shadow crossed the room in 3 limping steps, put his head on the bed. Rose's hand found his ears, scratched the way he liked. "Good boy," she whispered. "You didn't let me go. Thank you for not letting me go." Shadow made a sound, half whine, half sigh. Relief. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching. Tom stood beside him. "She's alive because of that animal," Tom said quietly. "I know. You're still going to prison. I know that too." 2 days later, Rose sat in her hospital bed, strong enough now to give a formal statement. Detective Sarah Martinez sat across from her, recorder running. Sheriff Tom stood by the window, arms crossed. "Mrs. Winters," Detective Martinez began, "I need you to tell me, in your own words, what happened 3 days ago." Rose's hands rested on the blanket, steady now. Shadow lay on the floor beside her bed, granted special permission to stay. I asked Marcus to help me die. The detective's pen paused. Asked him to help you commit suicide? Yes. I have Alzheimer's disease. Or I thought I did. Dr. Harrison diagnosed me 6 months ago. Progressive, irreversible. I was told I had maybe 2 years before I wouldn't recognize my own name. And you decided you'd rather die than face that. I decided I'd rather die while I still had a choice, while I was still me. Rose met the detective's eyes. I researched methods. I know about digitoxin. I was a nurse for 45 years. I knew the dosage. I knew how to make it look like cardiac arrest. So you obtained the digitoxin yourself? No. I asked Dr. Chen to prescribe it. I told her it was for my heart. She knew what I was planning. I made sure she knew. Why would she agree? Rose's expression softened with something like pity. Her husband John has ALS. He's dying. The care costs are destroying them financially. I offered Marcus's money in exchange for her cooperation. $360,000. 2 years of care for John. Detective Martinez wrote quickly. So you bribed your doctor to help you commit suicide and cover it up. I gave her an impossible choice, her husband or her oath. What would you have chosen, Detective? That's not... It's exactly the point. Rose's voice remained calm but firm. Marcus didn't want to do it. I spent 2 weeks convincing him, begging him. I told him that if he didn't help me, I'd do it myself. Badly, painfully. I manipulated him into believing he was showing me mercy. Mrs. Winters, are you aware you're confessing to conspiracy to commit fraud and solicitation of assisted suicide? I'm aware I'm telling the truth. Tom spoke from the window. Rose, you don't have to say any of this. You're the victim here. Am I? Rose turned to face him. Tom, you've known me since you were 10 years old. You know I don't do anything I don't want to do. I wanted to die. Marcus helped me. That makes me the instigator, not the victim. The law doesn't see it that way. Then the law needs to see better. Detective Martinez closed her notebook. Mrs. Winters, regardless of who instigated what, Marcus Cole administered a lethal dose of digitoxin with intent to kill. That's attempted murder under Montana law. With my consent, with my participation, with my plan. Consent doesn't make killing legal. Rose leaned forward. Then arrest me too. Charge me as a co-conspirator. Because if Marcus goes to prison for this, I'm as guilty as he is, more guilty. It was my idea, my decision, my life to end. The detective and Tom exchanged glances. We'll take your statement under advisement, Detective Martinez said. But Mrs. Winters, there's something else you need to know. The toxicology report came back. You had digitoxin in your system, yes, but you also had something else. Rose frowned. What? Benzodiazepines. Specifically, Valium. High dose. Mixed with the digitoxin, it could have stopped your heart entirely. Marcus didn't tell us about any Valium. Because I didn't give her Valium, Marcus said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Marcus stood flanked by 2 officers still in handcuffs. Tom had allowed him to visit Rose one last time before his arraignment. Then where did it come from? Detective Martinez asked. Marcus looked at Dr. Chen, who stood in the hallway behind him, also in cuffs. Sarah? Dr. Chen's face crumbled. I added it. When I came to sign the death certificate, Rose was still alive, barely, but alive. Her pulse was so faint, but it was there. I thought if I gave her something extra, something to stop her heart completely, it would be a mercy. She wouldn't suffer anymore. The room went silent. You tried to finish what Marcus started, Tom said, his voice flat. I tried to end her suffering. She was trapped in her own body, unable to move, unable to speak. What kind of mercy would it be to let her lie there, conscious, while her body shut down over hours, days? I gave her peace. You gave her attempted murder, Detective Martinez said. A second attempted murder. Dr. Chen sank against the wall. I thought I was helping. Rose's voice cut through the tension. Sarah, how much did you give me? 10 milligrams, enough to suppress respiration when combined with the digitoxin. It should have been peaceful. It should have killed me. Yes. Rose was quiet for a long moment. Then, thank you. Everyone stared at her. Thank you, Tom said. Rose, she tried to kill you. She tried to make sure I didn't suffer. There's a difference. Rose looked at Dr. Chen. Sarah, I'm not angry. I'm grateful. You showed me more compassion than I showed myself. Mrs. Winters, Detective Martinez began. No, listen to me, all of you. Rose's voice grew stronger. I wanted to die. I planned my death. I recruited help. And when 2 people tried to give me what I asked for, I'm supposed to call them murderers? I'm supposed to send them to prison for showing me mercy? The law is cruel. The law forces people with terminal illnesses to suffer until their bodies finally give up. The law makes criminals out of compassionate people who try to help. The law punishes mercy and calls it murder. Rose's eyes blazed. Well, I won't participate in that cruelty. I'm dropping all charges against both of them. Mrs. Winters, the state is prosecuting. Then I'll refuse to testify. I'll tell the jury that I wanted this, that I begged for this, that these 2 people loved me enough to help me when I needed it most, and any jury with a conscience will acquit them. Detective Martinez stood. This isn't over, Mrs. Winters. Yes, it is, because I'm alive. And since I'm alive, no one can prove what Marcus and Sarah intended. Intent is everything in a murder case, Detective, and I'll testify that their intent was mercy, not murder. Tom shook his head. Rose, you're making this impossible. Good. It should be impossible. What's happening here is impossible. A 72-year-old woman wanted to die with dignity, and now the people who loved her are facing prison. That's not justice. That's insanity. Shadow stood, sensing Rose's agitation. He pressed against her leg, grounding her. Rose put her hand on his head. The only one who did the right thing was Shadow. He refused to let me go. Even when I wanted to die, he chose life for me. And maybe, her voice cracked, maybe he was right. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Dr. Patel entered Rose's hospital room with a manila folder and an expression Rose couldn't quite read. Shadow lifted his head from the floor, watchful. Mrs. Winters, Dr. Patel said, I've been reviewing your medical history, specifically your Alzheimer's diagnosis from Dr. Harrison. Rose's chest tightened. And? I requested your brain scans from 6 months ago. The MRI, the PET scan, the cognitive assessments. He opened the folder, spread images across her bed. Mrs. Winters, I don't believe you have Alzheimer's disease. The room seemed to tilt. What? Your scans show no amyloid plaques, no tau tangles, no hippocampal atrophy. The markers we look for in Alzheimer's patients, they're not there. Rose stared at the scans. Black and white images of her brain looking perfectly normal. Then what's wrong with me? The memory problems, the confusion, pseudo-dementia. It's a condition where severe depression mimics the symptoms of dementia, memory loss, disorientation, difficulty concentrating, but it's reversible with treatment. Dr. Patel's voice was gentle. Mrs. Winters, you've been living alone for 15 years. Minimal social contact, grieving your husband. You're not losing your mind. You're suffering from profound isolation and untreated depression. Rose couldn't breathe. I asked Marcus to kill me because I was sad. You asked Marcus to kill you because you believed you had a terminal degenerative disease. That belief was based on a misdiagnosis. How could Dr. Harrison miss this? He's 72, semi-retired. He ran the basic tests, saw the symptoms, made an assumption, but he should have ordered more comprehensive imaging, should have ruled out other causes. I'm sorry, Mrs. Winters. This should have been caught. Rose put her face in her hands. Shadow stood immediately, pressing against her legs. She wrapped her arms around the wolf dog's neck and wept, great shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. I almost died for nothing, she whispered into Shadow's fur. I almost killed myself because of a mistake. Dr. Patel sat beside her. But you didn't die, and now you know the truth. You have years left, Mrs. Winters. Good years. With treatment you can recover fully. Rose pulled back, wiping her eyes. Does Marcus know? I told him this morning. He's devastated. Where is he? Holding cell downstairs. His arraignment is this afternoon. Rose stood on shaking legs. I need to see him. Mrs. Winters, you're not cleared for discharge. I don't care. I need to see him now. Sheriff Tom was called. He arrived 20 minutes later, expression unreadable. Rose, you shouldn't be out of bed. Take me to Marcus. That's not a good idea. Tom, please. I'm begging you. Something in her voice made him nod. He wheeled her down to the basement level where the holding cells were. Shadow walked beside the wheelchair, limping but determined. Marcus sat on a metal bench, head in his hands. When the cell door opened, he looked up. His eyes were red, hollow. Rose, he whispered. She stood from the wheelchair, walked into the cell. Tom started to protest, then stopped. She sat beside Marcus on the bench. I'm so sorry, Marcus said. God, I'm so sorry. You don't have Alzheimer's. You never did, and I almost killed you for... Stop. Rose took his hands. They were cold, trembling. Marcus, listen to me. You did what I asked, what I begged you to do. You were trying to respect my wishes. My wishes were based on a lie we both believed. Dr. Harrison told me I had Alzheimer's. I had no reason to doubt him. You had no reason to doubt me. She squeezed his hands tighter. You're not a murderer, Marcus. You're a desperate man who made an impossible choice. I should have gotten you a second opinion, should have questioned, and I should have done the same. We both failed, but we both get to live with that failure. That's more than most people get. Marcus pulled his hands away. Lily's going to die because of me. I tried to save her by killing you, and now you're alive, and I'm going to prison, and she still has no money for treatment. Rose was quiet for a moment, then, what if I told you Lily might not need that money? Marcus looked up. What? Dr. Patel ran some genetic tests for bone marrow matching to see if I could be a donor for Lily. Rose's voice shook. Marcus, the test came back with something unexpected. Lily and I share DNA, 12.5%. That's consistent with a great-grandparent and great-grandchild relationship. Marcus stared at her. That's impossible. You don't have children. I had a baby when I was 17. A girl. My parents forced me to give her up for adoption, closed adoption. I never knew her name, never knew where she went. Rose's eyes filled with tears. That baby had a daughter, and that daughter is Evelyn. The words hung in the air between them. Evelyn is your granddaughter? And Lily is my great-granddaughter. You were trying to kill Lily's great-grandmother to save her life. Rose laughed, a broken sound. The universe has a cruel sense of irony. Marcus buried his face in his hands again. Oh God, oh God, what have I done? You've brought my family back to me, Rose said softly. In the worst possible way, but you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Blood family. Lily is my blood. Does Evelyn know? Dr. Patel told her this morning. She's in shock. But she wants to meet me, really meet me, as her grandmother. Tom spoke from outside the cell. Rose, there's something else. The bone marrow match. You're a 50% match for Lily. Not perfect, but viable. With immunosuppression therapy, it could work. Rose stood. Then test me. Take whatever you need. When can we start? Rose, you're 72, Tom said carefully. Bone marrow donation is painful, risky at your age. I don't care about the risk. That child is my great-granddaughter, my blood, and she's dying. Rose's voice was steel. When can we start? Tom looked at Marcus. The donation would cost about $200,000. Hospital fees, procedure costs, anti-rejection medications. Where's that money going to come from? Marcus's voice was hollow. I don't have it. I spent everything on treatments that didn't work. I mortgaged everything to pay Dr. Chen. I have nothing left. You have my land, Rose said. $4.5 million worth of land. Sell it. Use whatever's needed for Lily's treatment. Rose, that's your home. My home is wherever my family is, and my family needs help. She turned to Tom. Can the sale be expedited, given the medical emergency? Tom rubbed his jaw. I'll call Judge Morrison. If Rose signs power of attorney to someone, maybe Evelyn, they could sell the land quickly. Timber companies have been trying to buy that property for years. Then do it. Today. Marcus looked at Rose with something like awe. You'd give up everything for Lily? A child you barely know? She's my great-granddaughter. My blood, my second chance at being a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother. I'd give up 10 properties for that. Rose smiled. Besides, Marcus, you were willing to help me die to save her. The least I can do is help myself live to save her. That afternoon, in a courthouse conference room, Rose signed power of attorney over to Evelyn Harper, who stood trembling with tears streaming down her face. I can't believe this, Evelyn whispered. My whole life I wondered about my mother's birth parents. If they thought about her, if they regretted giving her away. I regretted it every single day, Rose said. I named her Sarah. Did your mother? Her adoptive parents named her Sarah, too. They said when they got her, she had a hospital bracelet that said Baby Sarah. They kept the name. Rose's composure broke. She pulled Evelyn into her arms, and they cried together. Grandmother and granddaughter, separated for 55 years, reunited by tragedy and DNA, and a wolf who wouldn't let Rose die. 2 days later, Rose lay on an operating table. A large needle pierced her hip bone, extracting marrow. The pain was extraordinary, even with anesthesia. She bit down on a rubber guard and thought of Lily, of a little girl with her great-grandmother's eyes, of second chances. They took 2 units of marrow, enough for the transplant. In another operating room, Lily lay sedated, her small body prepped for the procedure that would either save her life or kill her. Rose's marrow was infused into Lily's bloodstream through an IV, not surgery but a simple transfusion. The marrow would travel to Lily's bones, hopefully take root, hopefully begin producing healthy blood cells. Then, the waiting. Days, weeks, watching blood counts, watching for rejection, watching for signs of graft versus host disease where Rose's cells would attack Lily's body. 6 weeks after the bone marrow transplant, Dr. Patel walked into Lily's hospital room with test results. Evelyn sat beside the bed, holding her daughter's hand. Marcus stood by the window, still wearing an ankle monitor from his bail agreement. Rose sat in a wheelchair on Lily's other side, her hip still healing from the marrow extraction. Shadow lay on the floor between them all. Dr. Patel smiled. The transplant took. Lily's white blood cell counts are rising. Her body is accepting Rose's bone marrow. The room erupted in tears and laughter. Evelyn buried her face in Lily's blanket. Marcus turned away, shoulders shaking. Rose simply closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you." Lily, pale but alert, looked up at Rose. "Does this mean I'm going to be okay, Grandma Rose?" Rose took the child's small hand. "It means you're going to fight, and you're going to win. Because you gave me your fighter cells?" Rose laughed through tears. "Something like that, sweetheart." Dr. Patel continued, "We'll need to monitor closely for the next 3 months. Watch for signs of graft versus host disease. But Lily, your cancer markers are dropping. You're in remission." 3 months later, the courthouse was packed for Marcus Cole and Dr. Sarah Chen's trial. Judge Helen Morrison, 68 years old with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, presided. The prosecution had charged Marcus with attempted murder in the first degree and Dr. Chen with conspiracy to commit murder and medical fraud. District Attorney Robert Walsh stood to give his opening statement. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is about 2 people who decided they had the right to end Rose Winter's life. Marcus Cole systematically poisoned a 72-year-old woman with digitoxin. Dr. Sarah Chen, a licensed physician who took an oath to do no harm, helped him cover it up. They very nearly succeeded in burying Mrs. Winters alive." The jury, 12 Montana residents ranging from a rancher to a retired teacher, listened with grave expressions. Then Rose's attorney, Margaret Flynn, stood. "Your Honor, the prosecution's narrative is incomplete. This case is about a woman's right to die with dignity, about impossible choices forced by our healthcare system, and about mercy, not murder." The trial lasted 5 days. On day 1, the prosecution called Sheriff Tom Whitaker to the stand. He testified about finding Rose barely alive, about Marcus's confession, about Dr. Chen's involvement. "Did Mr. Cole show remorse?" Walsh asked. "He did," Tom admitted. "He was crying, said he was sorry, but he also said Rose had asked him to do it." "And you believed him?" Tom paused. "I believed he believed it. Whether Rose actually wanted to die or whether Marcus convinced himself she wanted to die, that's a different question." On day 2, Dr. Sarah Chen took the stand. She looked 20 years older than she had 3 months ago. Her hands trembled as she was sworn in. Walsh questioned her first. "Dr. Chen, did you know Rose Winters was alive when you examined her body?" "Yes." Her voice was barely audible. "And you signed a death certificate anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" Dr. Chen's composure cracked. "My husband has ALS. He's dying. The care costs $15,000 a month. Our insurance ran out. We were bankrupt. Marcus offered to pay for 2 years of care, $360,000. I just had to sign 1 paper." "So you sold your medical license for money?" "I sold it for my husband's life." Dr. Chen's voice rose. "Have you ever watched someone you love suffer? Have you ever had to choose between your spouse and your conscience? I made a choice, the wrong choice, but I made it out of love, not greed." The courtroom murmured. Judge Morrison called for order. On cross-examination, Margaret Flynn asked, "Dr. Chen, when you examined Rose, what was her condition?" "Her pulse was 8 to 10 beats per minute, body temperature around 85 degrees. She appeared dead to any standard examination. I had to check for a full minute to even detect a heartbeat." "In your medical opinion, would Rose have survived without intervention?" No. At that temperature, at her age, with that cardiac suppression, she would have died within hours, maybe less. So when you gave her additional medication, you believed you were preventing suffering, not causing murder. Yes, I thought I was showing mercy. On day 3, Marcus testified. Walsh cross-examined him harshly. Mr. Cole, you stood to inherit $4.5 million if Rose died, correct? Yes, but you needed money to pay for your stepdaughter's cancer treatment, correct? Yes? So Rose's death would have solved all your financial problems. It wasn't about the money. Then what was it about, Mr. Cole? Love? Because I would argue that love doesn't involve poisoning someone and burying them alive. Marcus's voice shook. Rose begged me for 2 weeks. Every day, she'd show me her medical records, tell me how Alzheimer's was going to destroy her mind. She'd cry and say she didn't want to become a burden, didn't want me spending years keeping her alive while Lily died. She made me promise that when she died it would be quick and peaceful and dignified. But you didn't wait for her to die naturally. You helped her along. Because she asked me to. Because she was terrified of doing it herself and doing it badly. Because I loved her enough to give her what she wanted, even though it destroyed me to do it. Love? Walsh's voice dripped with sarcasm. Mr. Cole, you tried to murder a woman who raised you as a son. That's not love, that's greed. Marcus looked at the jury. I'm guilty of many things. Of being weak. Of being manipulated. Of not getting Rose a second opinion before I believed her diagnosis. But I'm not guilty of greed. I'm guilty of loving someone so much that I couldn't see I was helping her kill herself. On day 4, Rose took the stand. The courtroom went silent as she was sworn in. She wore a simple blue dress, her white hair pulled back. She walked without assistance now, her hip healed. Shadow had been left at home, but his absence felt like a presence. Margaret Flynn questioned her first. Mrs. Winters, did you ask Marcus Cole to help you die? Yes. Why? Because I believed I had Alzheimer's disease. I was told I had maybe 2 years before I wouldn't recognize my own name. I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want Marcus to spend years caring for a shell of a person while a child, my great-granddaughter, though I didn't know it then, died because there was no money for her treatment. I wanted my death to mean something, to save her. Did Marcus want to help you? No. He refused for 2 weeks. I begged him every day. I manipulated him. I told him if he didn't help me do it peacefully, I'd do it myself violently. I wore him down until he agreed. And when he finally said yes, I praised him for his compassion. I made him believe he was doing something noble. The jury leaned forward, listening. Mrs. Winters, Margaret Flynn continued, do you believe Marcus Cole tried to murder you? No. I believe Marcus Cole tried to honor my wishes. He believed he was showing me mercy. And until Shadow stopped him, until I woke up in that hospital and learned I'd been misdiagnosed, I believed he was showing me mercy too. Walsh stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Winters, with all due respect, you were suffering from severe depression. Your judgment was impaired. Mr. Cole, as someone who loved you, should have gotten you psychiatric help, not digitoxin. You're absolutely right, Rose said calmly. He should have. I should have. Doctor. Chen should have. We all should have seen that I was suicidal, not terminal, but we didn't. We believed a doctor's diagnosis. We trusted the medical system. And that system failed me. So you're saying this is Dr. Harrison's fault for misdiagnosing you? I'm saying this is everyone's fault and no one's fault. It's the fault of a healthcare system that makes dying with dignity illegal. It's the fault of insurance companies that bankrupt families trying to save their children. It's the fault of a society that stigmatizes mental health treatment so severely that a 72-year-old woman would rather die than admit she's depressed. The courtroom was utterly silent. "Mrs. Winters," Walsh said carefully, "are you asking this jury to let two people who tried to kill you walk free?" "I'm asking this jury to understand that mercy looks different when you're the one suffering, when you're the one trapped in impossible circumstances, when you're the one being forced to choose between dignity and survival." Rose looked at each juror in turn. Marcus and Dr. Chen made terrible choices, but they made them out of love and desperation, not malice. And I forgive them. Completely. On day 5, the jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the forewoman, a woman in her 60s named Patricia, stood to read the verdict. In the case of the state of Montana versus Marcus Cole, on the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Evelyn gasped. Marcus closed his eyes. However, Patricia continued, we recommend mercy in sentencing due to extraordinary circumstances. Judge Morrison nodded. Mr. Cole, please stand. Marcus stood, Evelyn beside him. Mr. Cole, you have been found guilty of attempted murder. The maximum sentence for this crime is 40 years in state prison. However, taking into account the testimony of the victim, the lack of malicious intent, and the extraordinary circumstances of this case, I am sentencing you to 5 years in prison, suspended. You will serve no jail time. Instead, you will complete 2,000 hours of community service and remain on probation for 5 years. If you violate probation in any way, you will serve the full sentence. Do you understand? Marcus's knees buckled. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. The jury had been equally merciful with Dr. Chen, guilty of conspiracy, but sentenced to 3 years suspended, community service, and permanent revocation of her medical license. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Rose pushed through them to reach Marcus on the courthouse steps. Thank you, he said, crying. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank me by living well, Rose said, by taking care of Evelyn and Lily, by never forgetting that life is precious, even when it's hard. Even when it hurts, it's still precious. That evening, Rose sat on the porch of her cabin, the 5 acres she'd kept when she sold the rest of the land to pay for Lily's treatment. Shadow lay beside her, his head in her lap. The wolf dog was 16 now, moving slowly but still alert. Evelyn's car pulled up. Lily jumped out, wearing a pink hat over her growing hair, and ran to Rose. Grandma, guess what? My doctor said I can go back to school next month. Rose caught the child in her arms. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Marcus and Evelyn followed, carrying grocery bags. They'd moved into a small house nearby, close enough to visit daily. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, casting long shadows through the pines, Rose looked at her family, her found family, her blood family, all mixed together now, and felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years. Peace. Shadow lifted his head and howled, just once. A sound that echoed through the valley. Rose smiled. I know, boy, I know, we made it. They had all made it, against impossible odds, through terrible choices and second chances, through death and back to life. And somewhere in heaven, she liked to think, David heard Shadow's howl and smiled too. If you're between 55 and 68, you've lived long enough to know this truth. Life doesn't always turn out the way we planned. Maybe you've lost people you loved. Maybe you faced diagnoses that terrified you. Maybe you felt invisible, like your best years are behind you. Rose Winters felt all of that. At 72, she believed she was dying, that her life no longer mattered, that she'd become nothing but a burden. But Shadow, a loyal wolf dog who refused to let her go, showed her something profound. It's never too late for a second chance. Rose discovered family she never knew existed. She saved her great-granddaughter's life. She found purpose again. Not in spite of her age, but because of everything she'd survived to get there. Your story isn't over. The people who love you, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4, they need you here. Your wisdom matters. Your presence matters. You matter. Don't give up before you see what comes next. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like Rose, invisible or forgotten? What kept you going during your darkest moments? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.